Everybody, welcome to First Year Foundations. We're getting closer and closer to the end of this term. I hope you are as excited as I am to have a winter break and to, relax a little bit. It's been intense and crazy, and let's not even get started. Let's talk about leadership today. All right, so leadership is a term that is interesting to me because it's half bullshit and half really important. And what I mean by that is a lot of people will say terms like leadership and it really means nothing. They have no idea what they're talking about. They have no background information, no valid ideas, and they just throw out the word leadership, and that's the bullshit part. On the other hand, though, leadership, the actual act of guiding and motivating people, is a really, really important skill that most, if not all people, really ought to acquire. And you've seen it, and you've seen it done well, and you've seen it done poorly. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. I want to think about what makes a good leader and what makes a poor leader, and think about different situations in which we might find leaders and leadership. So I've put a few links here that I want you to check out. These are examples that I find valuable in terms of leadership. But, you know, if you have a different take on what makes a valuable motivator and what makes a valuable strategist and what makes a valuable person to lead a team of whatever, whether that's, you know, your First Year Foundations group work or whether it's NASA going to the moon or whatever, there's always some form of leadership, and it significantly impacts the bottom line. And the bottom line could be money, but it could also be ethics, it could be society, it could be the way that we feel about whatever project we're working on. And, you know, I would love to be a great leader, but I know there's so much work to be done on my part, and likely, I mean, if you're in First Year Foundations, there's lots of work to be done on your part as well, even though I hope that you are already thinking of yourself to some extent as a leader. There are situations, obviously, where you're not the leader, and there are some, probably more than you realize, where you really are taking a leadership position, whether that's, you know, working on an aspect of the group project that's important and that you are helping motivate or demotivate people if you're not doing it well. There are lots of situations on a daily basis where we are all kind of put into a leadership role, whether or not we want to. Some of us more than others. In my personal experience, I have seen excellent leadership and I've seen horrible leadership, and ironically I've seen them both at this school, so you know that's a different conversation I won't get started on. But I have seen it when people really value ideas that you present to them, right? Even whether they can't use them or not, they still really value your input. That motivates people to work towards a shared goal. I've seen, like I said, I've seen that kind of relationship where people encourage thinking, critical thinking. And I've seen also leadership, which is the bullshit part, where people keep saying the word leadership, but then they clearly show you that whatever you do doesn't matter and that they don't know very much and they don't want to know very much. And I think we've all seen that kind of leadership in various situations. Hopefully less, some of us definitely more. I want you to think this week about the leadership you've seen and the leadership you've done. And so I've asked you basically for different examples of leaders and their methodologies. So what they did that worked well or what didn't work well. And in this case, you know, you can name somebody, you can say like, Mr. Smith, my biology teacher in grade 9 or whatever, or you can just say, I had a biology teacher in grade 9. I'm not interested in the specific people or names, but I am interested in context, right? Like you need to kind of explain the situation you were in order to tell what made this person a valuable leader or a really poor leader. And the reason I'm asking for poor leadership, other than to vent, is to get people to realize that there are actually a lot of techniques that are really detrimental. And if we don't realize that, we don't avoid them. And that's one of the things I've seen so many times. I have, in my experience, seen people who, you know, continue to motivate people by showing that their work is important, that they're valued, that they're conscious of what they're doing, that they're making informed decisions. And then I've seen other people that, like clearly don't give a fuck about what's going on or what you're doing. And that becomes really clear really quickly. And when that is clear, like, why would you do a good job for that person? Why would you be motivated to work hard on some kind of project, especially if there's no correlation between the experience you have working hard and the experience you have doing virtually nothing? And that translates into a really poor working environment. And like I said, I've seen both ends of the spectrum and things in between. And I'm sure you have too, maybe to a lesser extent because you haven't necessarily been in the working world as long as I have and other people have. And so I want you to think about both personal experience and your experience of the world, meaning you probably haven't met the president, but you can say what has motivated you or demotivated you about what the president has done. And so that's not to say everyone needs to use the president as their example, but there are people that you've seen, maybe even in films, in fictional films, it's still valid to talk about the leadership styles. So I want you to think about in your own experience and in your experience through mediated environments, right? So where you haven't necessarily met or worked for the person that you're talking about, but you can see that this would be valuable or this wouldn't be valuable. I want you to think about that. And then finally, I want you to think about your own experience. And that might be, as I said, a little more limited, but it's still really important because a good leader is self-reflective. And that means, as we've discussed, people who think about not just what's going on and not just about themselves, but about how they fit within bigger structures are way more effective in virtually everything they do. And hopefully we all get to a more and more self-reflective aspect in our leadership. That's something that can be worked on forever virtually. Because it's not like you hit this level and you're done, right? You can always get a little bit better. And that goes for leadership, that goes for self-reflection. And that's why I'm having you do, as the final activity, self-reflection of your own leadership. And really, if you've babysat and that's your leadership, or if you've run a Fortune 500 company that, I haven't heard of, but if that's the case, please let me know. I'm always looking for bigger and better jobs. Anyway, tell us about your experience and what we can learn from that. And again, my goal is that you and everyone else participating become a little bit more self-reflective so that you can become better and better leaders. And but equally important, that you can avoid the pitfalls of poor leadership that I know that you and I and all of us have seen at different times in our lives. That's your work for the week, and I look forward to seeing it. And again, speaking as a leader of the class, I always encourage feedback. I have the feedback button on the website. I also have the Ask Me Anything. If you have advice on how I can, take on my role in a better way, especially, constructive. If you just say, Chris, you're too ugly to be teaching this class, then, I can't really do anything about that. But if you say, Chris, I've noticed that you do this, but I think it would be more valuable if you do that, that is really helpful. And I really do like when I see that kind of information because hopefully it makes me slightly better every time. Anyway, I look forward to seeing what you do. And as always, get it in by the end of Friday. I hope everything is going well and that you're staying safe and healthy. Until next time, cheers.